With 82,000 followers and having worked with some of the biggest celebrities in the game in just 2 years since launching, Behind the Brand is so excited to welcome Jean Vintage to the sofa. Hi guys, welcome back to the second episode of Behind the Brand. I'm super excited to have Casey Jean with us today, who is CEO and creator of Jean Vintage. She's worked with some of the biggest celebrity names in the world, and we'll be discussing all things Jean Vintage, fashion and vintage fashion. So let's get into it. So Casey, obviously we met through Instagram. I don't know whether I DM'd you or you DM'd me, but I think we'd been commenting and stuff. And then obviously it made sense to get you on here. But obviously I heard about Jean Vintage quite early into kind of when you guys started as a business in the first lockdown and stuff. And actually started working with you a little bit, and then here we are now.
Yeah, I feel like it was lockdown when we first started following each other and found each other. And I remember thinking your content was so cool, and I feel like back in lockdown, that's when you really just elevated. And you're like, oh, your indoor content was so cool. And I was like, I need Maisie to shoot Jean Vintage. So, yeah.
I think it was for both of us, but also for a lot of people, that first lockdown was like, I've never had this time in my life to actually focus on one thing that I've wanted to do and I've never got around to.
100%.
And I think Jean Vintage is one of many success stories of businesses that just absolutely flew and almost came from nowhere in that lockdown.
Yeah, I feel like we looked at it as an opportunity, you know, definitely. And my creative juices just absolutely unleashed in that lockdown. So it was a
I think
really
having
good
the
thing
brain
for us.
space, wasn't it, as well, to have that
time.
Yeah, because I think lack of time leads to lack of creative brain space. So you being able to do all that, and now obviously it's your baby and it's your full-time thing, and that's obviously amazing. There's not many people can say they've done that. So I suppose what would be a good place for us to start would be talking us through kind of your background and how that led to you starting Jean Vintage and how it actually kind of manifested itself.
Yeah, so fashion-wise, I've always, ever since I was young, you know, I've always loved fashion. I've always picked my own outfits, threw a paddy if I couldn't wear what I want, like my mum used to say. So yeah, I've always loved it. Finished school and I decided to go down a corporate route. I studied HR, went to uni. And I think it was just I'd always loved fashion. I did want to study fashion, but I was just thinking more sensible and what would bring the money in, the stability, security. So I went down a HR route, which I loved. Left uni, got a job in HR and just worked, you know, did fashion. I always did little projects on the side. So I had a clothing brand. Yeah. And I always had a really keen interest in high-end fashion, you know, and designer. Yeah. Always loved it. So I would just research it. I'd know all the latest trends. And then I started buying into buying my own designer pieces and starting my collection. Yeah. So I've always done it on the side, but just through working through HR, I was happy. Yeah. Landed my dream job, which was amazing, and I absolutely loved working there. Worked for a really good company. And then my partner was like, you need to set something up. You know, I started reselling things. Yeah. And I felt like there was a big void in the market, just for vintage designer, authentic vintage designer.
Is this early stages of Depop and stuff then? You know, when people really started reselling things for the first time?
Yeah, and I believe in a circular wardrobe. So I would buy things, you know, and then I'd wear it a couple of times and then think, you know what, I'm going to resell it on. And, you know, I used
let
to
somebody else love it for a while.
Yeah, I believe, I've got a passion for pre-loved items, you know, extending that life cycle of a product. And yeah, so I'd just always been into that. And Jamie was like, you need to set up a business, you know, you need to set up this as an Instagram. And at the time I was like, no, I don't think I should, you know, it's scary. It's daunting. It's so daunting. The thought of starting an Instagram with 0 followers, you know, starting a website, I was scared, but he always was he pushes me, and is my drive. He was you need to do it. You'll be amazing. Like, let's just start it.
He sounds like a gem. I feel like more people need a Jamie in.
Do you know what? He honestly is like he is like the coolest person I know. Like, he loves his fashion just as much as me.
Yeah.
You know, like all my outfit inspirations like come from him.
So I love that.
Yeah, we're like the boy-girl version of each other.
It's
literally.
like power couple in owning this unbelievable business together.
Yeah.
And I think it's a nice aspect of you're both working towards the same thing for your own family, for your own future, and you're really working on that together.
Yeah, so it is. We really work really well together. So yeah, he pushed me into doing it, like majorly out of my comfort zone. Like, let's do it, and we haven't looked back. Like, it's just been a crazy whirlwind, like over the past like 2 years.
Yeah,
so,
that's
but it's been amazing. Yeah.
So it was the start of lockdown when you kind of set that Instagram up, and then what were those kind of first stages for you in terms of, obviously you were posting stuff, you know, that you were reselling on and all the rest of it, and then where did the other stuff start coming in terms of, you know, working with talent, with celebrities? How did that?
It happened really quick. So obviously we set up this Instagram, and then like from the day we did it, we just knew like that was our passion, just was there, and we knew we wanted to make it work. And like, you know, we started with one bag. You know, it's crazy looking back because we just had a dream, and but as soon as we started to run the business, we just knew this is where we want to be and what we want to do. So obviously we generate the Instagram, and then I started taking the content, and people started buying, and just from then we just naturally grew. And I think it was the lockdown that helped. You know, it helped with everybody's engagement, didn't it? Like, people were on the phones more naturally, more disposable income, so we just started generating, you know, the sales, and it was picking up. So I feel like I'm quite lucky in terms of the items that we sell are already, you know, brands within their own right. So we just handpick the best selection of those brands to showcase. So I feel like naturally we attract a lot of talent, you know, and attract stylists, influence celebrities, that sort of thing. So I feel like, naturally we just attract that sort of target audience, which is obviously amazing. And everybody, you know, I've been so lucky to work with the people that I have, and I'm just so grateful for everybody's support, really, for any person who has supported the brand.
Yeah, I think definitely there's a point there in that, like, you know, people love these brands anyway, and it does attract people to you, but there's also a lot of businesses out there who are reselling vintage items who don't do as well. So, you know, there's definitely, I don't think you can take anything away from yourself in that sense, in that you're finding the pieces that are the most sought after, I suppose, and stuff that's right for certain types of people in certain moments and all the rest of it. But I feel like you also made an interesting point before about, you know, when you started, you just had one bag and you just did it. And it's so funny because me and my mum have said so many times, my mum's sat over there, and my mum have said so many times about, you know, because I started my own business when I was really young, and it didn't work out, but I learned so much from it.
100%.
And a lot of people, I think, don't do it, or do it too late because they're so worried about, well, I've not got enough product, or what if it doesn't work, or this, that, and the other. But you were talking about, you know, you just did it and you had the passion for it. And I think that for advice in business for people is like two of the biggest things is, if you're passionate about it, you'll make it work, and don't wait for the perfect time, because there's never going to be a perfect time.
There will never be a perfect time. If you've got passion and drive, you've just got to go for it. You know, I always would dreamed of owning my own business, and I'm the same as you. Like, I've had a clothing brand previously that it was successful for a little while, but you know, it didn't work out. But the amount of lessons I learned from that, especially with Instagram, with working with like influencers and stuff, suppliers, just even reaching out to anybody to help. And if you're told no, you're speaking to the wrong person. You know, you've just got to learn from it. And it's
I
all
think
part
that's
of the process.
and I think that's one of the best pieces of business advice.
100%.
Is no is never an answer. If someone says no, you need to find somebody else because they're the wrong person.
Make it work.
100%. So obviously there's a difference between starting your brand and it starting out well, and then it becoming a name that is well known by a lot of reputable people in the industry. So what would you say was the turning point for Jean Vintage?
I would definitely say, you know, the lockdown scenario, we all had more time. Like, I converted my spare room into like a content room, and I just found a love for like photographing the items, handling the items, and just, you know, a love for sourcing and selling the items. But I think as well, it was when I decided to take it full time.
Yeah.
So I worked, like I previously said, I went into HR. I worked right up until early 2021. So given that overlap, there was like a year of me doing Jean Vintage whilst working a full-time job. So it was hard.
Yeah.
I'd get up in the morning, I'd be replying to DMs, I'd be looking at the website, trying to source stock in between emails, you know, and then I just got to a point where I was like, if I want to elevate this business and take it to the next level, I need more time.
Yeah.
And I knew the potential that it had. I always did, but I was like sort of stuck in a rut with stability, you know, just thinking it's a scary thing.
It's the scary, when you come from a stable...
you did it, didn't you?
Yeah, when you have like a really good salary coming in, that sounds really, really up my own arse. But when you, at a young age, you're used to earning decent money,
100%.
The thought of the risk of then leaving that all behind is actually quite sickening.
It really is. Like, I'd landed my dream job. I worked with amazing people. Like, I was high up for my age. You know, I'd always aspired to be in the role that I was in. And, you know, I loved my job, and I had to make that decision to think, do I want to follow my dreams? And Jean Vintage is going to impact, because I was at a point where I was just working evenings, weekends, mornings, and trying to fit it all in, and it weren't working, you know.
And you're going to hit a wall, and you're never going to be able to progress past a certain point if you can't give all your time to it.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, I took the plunge. That was like March 2021, and I've never looked back since. Like, and I think that was real. I just needed to just grab it and just take it as far as what I could. So, and since then, I have seen a lot more growth within the business. So yeah, I feel like that's probably the turning point, and I would advise to anybody, you know, it's just take the plunge and just do it.
I think it's definitely inspirational, because I think there'll be a lot of other people who are in the same position and have ideas for businesses and dreams that they want to start and everything else, and are struggling with the same feelings that both of us have in the past, where we're like, shit. But just knowing that, you know, if you really back yourself, and I always think if you take a risk, it'll pay off in one way or another.
100%.
Even if it's not the way that you wanted it to pay off, you'll see the reward in some sense. So, yeah, definitely, I think that's a good piece of advice, and a good story for people to see as a success story as well. So, obviously, people who've followed you for a while will know that you are a mummy now.
I am.
You have a 1-year-old daughter.
She's 1 on Sunday. I can't believe how fast it's gone.
It's scary, and
really
she's
is,
so
like,
cute. I've just seen some exclusive pictures, and she's beautiful.
She's so cute.
And obviously she's going to be growing up in the empire that is Jean Vintage. She's potentially set for life, like we were saying, if she decides she wants to go into fashion or business.
Yeah, it'll be there for her.
It'll be there for her. So obviously she's very young, and this all happened. It must have been a bit of a whirlwind for you, because this has all happened at the same time as you quitting your job, starting your own business, and now I'm having a baby.
Yes.
So what's life like as a working mum?
It's, you know what, it's amazing. Like, I really wouldn't have it any other way. But a funny story. So when I actually handed my notice in at my job, I found out I was pregnant the week later. I was like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, giving up, you know, I had such good maternity benefits, security of the job. Yeah. So I was thinking, have I made the right choice? And given, if it had have happened the week before, like, would I have made the choice? Like,
well, that's
I have
fate,
no idea.
isn't it?
Exactly. And I do believe that every single thing does happen for a reason. And honestly, it's worked out the best.
Yeah.
You know, I worked all the way through being pregnant. Even I think I had 2 days off when I had her.
Oh, wow.
Straight back to work. She was with me. She was in the office with me. She's just part of the team now.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes it's challenging to juggle. Because we do live, breathe, work Jean Vintage, especially because it is me and Jamie as well. But yeah, it's amazing. She's my greatest achievement. She really is. And I feel like it's just that added motivation. Like, it's for her.
100%.
And it's the drive. And I knew as soon as I got pregnant, I was like, this needs to work.
Yeah.
So I was just so focused, so driven.
Yeah, like you say, it's probably good that you had that extra motivation of like, this business cannot fail.
Yeah.
But also nice that now, you know, you can show your daughter the work ethic that she can have in the life that she can have, you know, really building, like I say, this empire for her, but also you get to be with her all the time, and you have the flexibility of being able to work and be with your child rather than thinking, oh my God, I can't work today because of of whatever. And it's funny because as much as it would have been nice for you to have those maternity benefits and everything else, when you went back to work, you wouldn't have seen her.
Exactly.
Whereas now you have a
100%. She's in the office with us. It's just, there's a lot of benefits of being like self-employed, and the flexibility is really good, and we get to spend some really good quality time together. So it's good.
You're gonna have to start packing things up.
I
And
know.
Get a little wage going.
Yeah.
So obviously there's been kind of over the last couple of years, there's been a huge rise in vintage fashion, and people are really starting to move away from fast fashion, and it's a massively controversial topic. So talk us through your experience and how this works for Jean Vintage with the rise of vintage fashion and people shopping sustainably.
Yeah, so I love anything vintage. Like, I've always had a passion for like vintage items, vintage designers, and just that whole period of like the 90s and the 2000s. You know, it's like so nostalgic when you look back. But I love nobody having the same piece as you.
Yeah.
And, you know, people are like, where'd you get that from? The best thing you can ever say is it's vintage.
Yeah.
No one will have it. Nobody can just go buy it. Like, that piece tells a story.
Yeah.
Like, it's got a little bit of history.
Yeah.
So that's what I just love. So throughout my life, I've always just looked for those, you know, those vintage pieces that nobody else is going to have.
Yeah.
So that was obviously the passion and the drive in setting up the brand. And then I do feel like it has like risen so much, but I feel like Jean Vintage has had a part of, you know, making people more aware. Like, definitely a part to play. Like, shop sustainably, you know. These pieces, they're amazing. You know, we handpick the best selection. Yeah. And some of the pieces, they just do not make things like that anymore. No. You could go into Selfridges and buy like a brand new saddlebag. Yeah. It's never going to be the same as a vintage one, in my opinion.
And the vintage pieces tend to be made to such a better standard like as well. Art. The quality, it's stunning.
The craftsmanship, it like on shoes, bags, the embellishment, and I really do feel like they just do not make them anymore like that anymore. And if you go buy like a brand new designer piece, that it depreciates instantly. As soon as you've bought it, as soon as you've worn it, it depreciates. Whereas if you invest in vintage, it will retain and hold its value, and even it could make you money. Like, it could potentially increase.
If there was nothing else other than the fact that, you know, I would sit there thinking, I wonder who had this bag, and like, I wonder what their life was like,
100%.
and whatever. But it's funny what you said, because I was literally saying to somebody the other day, you'll never regret a vintage purchase, ever. Never. Because, like you say, it's never going to depreciate in value. If anything, it's going to, like you say, make you money. And I just think, you know, if you know that you're doing like your bit as well, and you're not kind of contributing to like the end of the world and low workers' wages and all the rest of it, these things will stay in your wardrobe forever. And
staple pieces that you can rewear, restyle, and just they'll always look amazing. Nobody else will have that piece.
No, I love that. And you know, there's so many things. Like, I look back at pictures of my mum from like the 80s and the 90s, and some gorgeous things that she had, and she's like, I don't have them anymore. And I'm like, what?
I want to wear that.
Why have you not kept that for me? I mean, she was a lot smaller than me, so. But I think I think people are realising it so much more now as well, because people are, like you say, noticing the difference in quality and the fact that they can go out and people be like, oh my God, where from?
Where is that from? And the best thing you can ever say, it's vintage.
Yeah, which is actually on your website, I think, isn't it? It's
I feel so vintage.
Yeah. I love that. Every time I go on the site, I'm like, oh, look at that. So and obviously, as kind of the fall of fast fashion comes in, if you like, it paves such a good kind of path for you to just kind of jump in and be like, here we are.
100%.
You know, everything that we do is as sustainable as it you know, possibly can be. Obviously, there's a lot of vintage stuff that's not necessarily overly sustainable, leather, fur, all the rest of it. But I think definitely as people are educating themselves more on this, it's opening doors for companies like Jean Vintage, especially because you're working with some big talent as well.
Like, I was reading, there was an article on ThreadUp who do like pre-loved and stuff, and literally the market is due in the next like 10 years. It's due to completely overtake fast fashion. Oh yeah, which is just amazing.
It's wild.
It is. It's crazy.
But you can see it happening already, can't you?
100%. Nobody wants. You know, I appreciate like quite a lot of things on our website are expensive, but I can promise you they're investments. But I want to accommodate for everybody. You know, like we've got T-shirts on, like Harley Davidson, like vintage T-shirt. I've got our cargos. You know, we've got a range of. Yeah. I believe that I offer something for everybody.
Yeah,
you know,
and you're still a fairly new business. You know, you'll grow as a business, and then you'll be able to, you know, as you grow, you will be able to offer more things to more, especially as, you know, like we say, as this market becomes bigger and less people are buying fast fashion, it will make way for other things to be a little bit more affordable for people 100%. Who don't have the biggest disposable income in the world. But then I also think, you know, if you don't have a massively disposable income, then invest in pieces.
Yes.
Don't go and buy a £5 PLT top that's going to last you 2 years and then it disintegrates.
Exactly.
You know?
And I once read somewhere as well, it was like, what will like thrift stores and vintage stores look like in 20 years time, 50 years time? And I was like, oh my God, what will they look like? But we just need to, keep this up and keep the rise of vintage fashion going, and just continue.
Definitely, I agree.
On the way.
So I know you get this question a lot, and I think this was actually one that came up on the question box that we put up. Was how do you source your items, because your selection is obviously unbelievable.
So basically from the start, I literally just started sourcing the items. I started off with one bag, you know, and built up the collection. And I've just built up like a web of suppliers since then. You know, I've reached out to people, I've sent emails. Any sort of advice for people looking to do it would be just research. You know, I'm completely self-taught, and there's so much information out there that is accessible. And I've just been fortunate enough to build up these relationships over time. So I've got a specific set of suppliers, you know, I can email anytime. So one of the aspects of Jean Vintage is the sourcing. So that's like a separate entity of itself. So anybody can contact us, you know, if you had a dream bag in mind or you wanted to make an investment, we can advise you on a piece. And I can just message all my suppliers, send a blanket email out, you know, and if they have the bag, we can source it, which nine times out of 10 they do, which is amazing. So I'm lucky to have built up these relationships over time.
Yeah, I think also that's probably an aspect of your business that not a lot of people knew about, because I didn't know actually until quite recently that was something that you did, and I think that's massive, because it's one thing going on and thinking, do you know what, I'm going to invest in a designer piece, but if you have no idea about any of these kind of pieces, and they are a lot of money, and if you're going to spend a lot of money, then you want it to be perfect. 100%. And I think that kind of very bespoke, tailored, personal service is such an amazing extra arm of your business to have.
I'm so passionate about, I want Jean Vintage to feel personal to you, no matter what item you want. You know, we're so reactive on our DMs, like we reply to every single DM, and I think it's so important. Like you say, you're spending a lot of money, you want that service. You know, and I wanted it to almost feel like a personal shopping experience. You know, I get girls saying, oh, it's my 18th, I'm buying, like, I want to make an investment, I want my dream design bag, honestly, and it's such a pleasure for me, you know, to work with them and find them their bag, like, in their price range. You know, depending, like, I can work with different conditions. You know, somebody might want something that's pristine, somebody might want something that looks a little bit more worn. So it is really an aspect of the business that I love, even to the point of denim. You know, if you said to me, Casey, I want to buy a pair of vintage Levi's, I would help you to the, like, as much as I could to find you that perfect fitting pair. So like the sourcing is like I say, it's like an area of the business itself that does really well. So I feel like I want it to be a personal service, not just, you don't want to just send an email, like just DM us, and we're always there to help, like, at any time. And
I think it gives you that that kind of genuine customer service. We really, you know, we really want to help you, and that again is a massive separating factor between businesses like yours and these big fast fashion giants. 100%. Because you don't get even
well, you don't even get, sometimes
you're speaking to a robot,
it's like online chat help.
Weird. So, I love that. I love that whole aspect of the business.
I feel like from day one, I always wanted that feel, like, no matter how big we get, you know, no matter how many followers the brand's got, it will always be a personal service tailored to you, and we're always there to ask, you know, no questions too silly. You know, I had a girl actually the other day who said, you know, I'm looking to buy an investment piece. I think it was her birthday, and I was talking her through the difference between, like, the saddles, you know, a Chanel, and she was, like, so grateful, and, you know, saying, no, thank you so much for the help. But yeah, for people who aren't that experienced in the industry, like it's good to just
and also
help.
important for you guys in terms of building a loyal customer base that will come back
100%.
again and again,
Yeah.
because there'll be so many people that go to a lot of businesses and have a bad sales experience and then will never shop with them again, whereas this is so far the other way that, you know, when they have a good experience with you, especially if it's someone that regularly invests in designer pieces, they'll come back and back again, and they'll feel like they have a friendship with you at that point.
Yeah, like that's what I like to build relationships. I think it's so important, and you know, we do have a high returning customer rate, and I do put it down to, you know, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but our customer journey, you know, our customer experience, every single thing I want right, you know, from the point of reacting to DMs, you know, getting back to people straight away, getting back to emails, helping people. If somebody wants an additional picture of a handle or, you know, something or some wear on a bag, we're there and we will help. Even to the point of our shipping, we ship everything that day if it's ordered before half four, and all of our services are next day for the UK. Like we use a combination of DHL and Royal Mail. I want you, if you purchase from us, I want you to have it as soon as possible. You want that, you buy something and you just want it in your hands straight away.
You're literally waiting at the window for the postman.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than like tracking, like, oh, has it been sent yet? Has it been sent? We pride ourselves on get that order out. Like we work so hard on that, and even to the point of the packaging. Like it'll come in a beautiful bag that's biodegradable.
It always smells beautiful, by the way. Anytime I've ever had anything from Jean Vintage, it smells beautiful.
Everybody always says, what do you spray on the tissue paper? But yeah, we've got like beautiful boxes that you can reuse to like hold your designer piece. It's like a folding magnetic box. And I thought, with that in mind, I was thinking you can store your designer bag in there, you know, keep it in like you would like a Louis Vuitton or Chanel.
You really have thought of like everything.
I'm like, I want you to open that parcel, it'll smell beautiful.
And like you say, it's a whole customer journey then, and then there'll be that constant association with you guys as a brand.
I want the best quality, you know, I just want everything to be.
And I think this is where a lot of people would cut corners, isn't it?
Yeah, and I do believe that it's all so important, and for your returning customers especially. And you know, what beautiful tissue paper. I just want everything to be. You're buying an expensive item. You know, you want it to be.
It wants to feel luxe, doesn't it?
We've even sent things to America because we use DHL Express. It's been there the next day.
Oh, wow.
Like, honestly, I've had girls message like, how
have you done this?
Have you got this to me so fast? And I'm like, so yeah. Like,
with that good.
Yeah, even Australia, I'm like, you can't even get a person to Australia as quick as you can get a parcel to you. So just little things like that. It's the little things I think that make it so important and just make the brand.
Definitely, I agree. Obviously, you've done a lot of amazing collaborations with creators, celebrities, loads of people. It could be someone that you've already worked with, but who would be your dream collaboration?
This is a hard one because, like you say, I've worked with people that I have dreamed of working with, like from starting out. But I think I'd have to say Rihanna.
That's a really good. It's not who I thought you were going to say, but that's a really good one.
Like I feel like because she's just so cool in herself. Like she's effortless. Her style, it's so versatile. Like she can be super dressy, and then she'll just have like combats on, like a cap or something. So I feel like she's just so cool. Everything about her, and she does wear vintage pieces. I
was just going to say she's actually very Jean Vintage.
Yeah, she is. Like she wears vintage Dior. Like I've seen her in vintage Gucci, Tom Ford. So I think it'd be very fitting.
I think, like you say, because their style's so versatile as well, isn't it? I genuinely thought you were going to say like one of the Kardashians, because obviously that would be unreal for any business.
That would be like amazing, but I think.
It's a little bit less obvious, and I like it.
Just putting that out there into the universe.
Yeah. If anybody knows Rihanna, can we send her Casey's number, please?
Give her a shout.
This is another kind of like fun question, but if you could only wear, say, like one item of clothing or one brand for the rest of your life, because obviously we know you love your vintage brands, then what would it be?
I think I'd have to say an item, it'd have to be vintage Levi's, like hands down. Like they are my go-to. Like I have got so many pairs, like pairs that are girly, like that are tight on your leg, make your bum look amazing. I've got pairs that are like 4 sizes too big that I'll shove on like my bummy days with my trainers and stuff. So I feel, and they're just so versatile. Like you can rip them.
I mean, you can't go wrong with denim ever.
No, never.
She
and
said.
like in double denim. So yeah, and I just think again the sustainability factor.
Yeah.
It's, you know, keeping them in circulation, and just I think I'd have to go for Levi's because they're just so versatile. But in terms of a brand, I would say vintage. I'd say Dior.
Yeah.
Just because of how fun it is, like all the collections around like the 1990s and the 2000s.
They're iconic, aren't they?
So iconic. Like the Rasta collection, you know, the hardcore collection. It's just, it's all super fun and like nostalgic. You look back and you can remember like Paris Hilton wearing.
Yeah,
you know, that sort of stuff.
you can almost smell, see, hear.
Yeah.
You know everything that's going on, don't you? When you look at that.
100%. And I was actually reading an article the other day, and it was saying that we are quite a nostalgic like generation.
Yeah.
You know, we love looking back and just remembering like those times. So yeah, I think Dior 100%. A current brand, I would have to say Balenciaga.
I know, I'm a huge fan.
I'd die for Balenciaga. Like it's
I
so
know.
cool. The
It's
silhouettes,
iconic
the
in its own
shapes.
right, isn't it? Different to the kind of vintage iconic Dior, but also just like seriously making movements.
Almost like
in a
futuristic.
modern,
In a modern way.
in a modern way. So yeah, I'm
And I
with
love
you on
to
that.
even blend the two, you know, like
Oh, yeah.
blend vintage with new. You know, you don't have to go an all vintage look. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to do it.
So, what would be your best advice for starting out as a business owner or creating your own brand or anything now?
Yeah, I think, and if anything, I would say consistency. You know, since starting Jean Vintage, like, I kid you not, I think I've worked every single day since, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I feel like if you want something enough, you have to work for it. You know, I go on holiday, I take Jean Vintage with me. I'm constantly replying to emails. I take bags out there to get the content. You know,
I feel that.
Yeah, like after my maternity, sometimes you need to switch off, and I feel like I do have a good work-life balance, but you need to do it if you want to be successful. And sometimes it gets to the point where it's not actually like work because
you love it
it's
so
your passion
much.
and you love it. Yeah. And like once you see the outcome, like once you see your like holiday content, you're like,
I'm glad I did that now.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I would definitely say consistency. Like even after having baby, like I think I had 2 days off, went straight back into it. Like it's I think just work hard at your dream and just discipline. Never have. Never lose that. And then I also think again what we said, if you get a no, you're speaking to the wrong person. You know, it doesn't matter where you're from, you know, what background you've got. If you want something, we were speaking earlier, weren't we, like the internet, you can get anything from the internet. We
you
live
could
in a
be
generation,
an expert on something within 24 hours,
100%.
I think.
You can just research it and we've got that information at our fingertips just right there.
I honestly think, and this may be controversial to a lot of people, if you are not researching and using, you can literally find anything on Google. You could self-diagnose yourself with a severe illness on Google.
You could.
If you are not using Google and finding out, you know, all the things that you need, then you are not right to be running a business.
100%.
Because there is going to be so many times where you are going to have to educate yourself on things, just figure shit out.
Yeah. You get problems every single day, and you just have to overcome them.
And,
it's
a lot of the time, it's problems for the first time, things that you know nothing about. So if you can't take even an hour a day,
100%,
then this is not for you.
Like, that's the thing, and people have come to me before and said like advice to set something up when you don't have much experience. Educate yourself and just go out there and, you know, teach yourself, because in fashion I am self-taught, and you know, over the years I've just built up and built up and built up.
You just have to keep pushing, I think, don't you? There'll be so many walls along the way, and there'll be so many risks that you have to take, but the people that do make it, you know, they keep going. And probably a lot of people watching this today will go, oh, well, because obviously this is a very short conversation and you can't go into every single issue you had while setting up Jean Vintage, but people will see it and think, well, she's had an easy ride, it just took off for her, and but people don't see everything that goes on.
Exactly.
And any successful business owner that you will ask will have had so much shit that they've had to overcome.
100%. And sometimes it can be just problem after problem after problem, and you're just thinking, but you get through it, and once you've overcome it, you learn, and
you reap the rewards, definitely. So the last question then is, what is next for Jean Vintage?
Good question. So our long-term objective would be the world's best, you know, the go-to place for vintage designer fashion.
Love that.
Which I feel like, you know, we do sell globally. We have got a customer base globally.
You have a reputation as well.
Yeah, and you know, I'm so grateful. Sometimes I have to pinch myself and think, like,
It's a nice position to be in.
Yeah, like we sell so much to America, Canada, like Australia, Europe, and I just think they're buying from like my brand, like my baby. It's just, it's crazy. So yeah, I think continue on the journey. Growth is always at the forefront of my mind, you know, in terms of team, you know, working with different agencies, different talent, like you say, influencers, celebrity stylists, and just pushing that growth. And now I want to be the biggest and the go-to place for vintage designer.
We love a big goal.
Yeah, like I feel like that's the long term. And then in the like middle of that, we've got Baby Jean Vintage that we started up.
Yeah.
So I want to just like tap into sort of new markets.
Yeah.
We've got something coming up for men, which is the Click. It's
Yeah.
going to be called. So it's basically a curated vintage selection, but for men, because I appreciate we do have some male customers.
Yeah.
But it's very
female orientated, isn't it? And there's also a lot of really cool men's vintage fashion out there, so it's a nice new market for you to get yourself into.
Definitely. So I feel like that'll go really well.
Yeah.
Jamie's going to head up that side of things, and yeah, I'd love to have like a physical store.
Yeah.
Eventually, you know, I think to appreciate vintage as well, like to handle it never gets old. Like I'll pick up pieces and I'm like, wow, this is just like art. So,
Yeah.
And I do appreciate it's hard when online shopping.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the barriers, but I do hope one day maybe we could have a physical store.
Manifesting it
Yes,
for you.
and we do have something exciting that could be coming up.
Yeah.
Where you might be able to shop our Jean Vintage denim in person.
Wow.
I know, so I can't really say much more about that, but yeah, that's solely sort of the denim as a little side project. So
I love that. We heard it
hopefully
here
that will
first.
be- Yeah.
Jean
So
Vintage denim.
keep your eyes peeled for that one. So yeah, just growth,
amazing.
and yeah, I feel super proud and super grateful to be in the position that, you know, that I'm in. So
You definitely should. I think the time scale in which this has become something so new, started out to the scale of the business that you're at now is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who would watch this, who were maybe like, oh, I don't know, should I do this, should I do that,
it.
will now probably be like, do you know what, I'm just going to do it. What's
Yeah.
the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Because it is such a good success story. So thank you for sharing it with me.
Welcome.
And it was
It's
really
been-
nice to have you on.
yeah, it's been lovely.
I will keep you updated on the next episode. We've got some really exciting guests lined up.
You're
and
welcome.
I'll see you all soon.